Hey folks, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. As I said in the previous video, I'm going to be sharpening one of my latest additions in my small German army knife gag collection. And as you see, hopefully, this knife has a very poor job done to the edge. It was sharpened with maybe a belt grinder or a very rough wheel. It's actually even burned a little bit, so that's definitely metal that lost its tempering, and it's not good. It has to be resharpened. So I'm gonna be using very simple tools: the knife, the nail buffer that I've often recommended and talked about, and the Falkneven DC4. Sorry, there it is. Falkneven that is this stone. All right, using this, starting at exactly 1 minute. See how long it takes to go from completely dull to working edge. As you see, I'm not using anything fancy or anything like that. Just I'm not even, keeping the stone in a bench or anything like that. Just holding one in each hand, being careful not to cut myself, and using like circular motion like this on one side and the other. Already quite a bit of material is being detached. One final thing that I'm using is this piece of toilet paper that is slightly damp with a couple drops of water. Nothing else. This has an awful wire edge. A wire edge is a thin layer of metal that forms in the edge of a knife that has been attempted to be sharpened. How you detect a wire edge? You just drag your nail like that, and if it catches in the edge, like that, you have a wire edge. The wire edge does not allow you to reach the true edge of your knife. If you have a wire edge, your knife is not going to be cutting well at all. It's going to be cutting nothing at all. So you have to get rid of that. How do you get rid of a wire edge? You just sharpen it properly, time and again, on both sides until it falls off on its own. Usually with a belt grinder or something like that, you can eat up an entire knife and never get rid of the wire edge. It just bends back and forth, and it keeps dragging material to the edge, forming the wire edge all over again, but not getting rid of the problem. Doing this like I am doing without having the stone set on anything firm is a little bit more tricky. Of course, it takes a little bit more practice, but it can be done. Practice it as much as you can. A few seconds on each side. As I said in the previous video, collecting knives like this, especially collecting an entire series of knives that are the same but made by different manufacturers, allows you to see the difference in knife steels, in steels. How one steel sharpens better than the other, how it takes an edge quicker, retains that edge better. Those are all things that you find out while doing this hobby. Yeah, that wire edge is coming off nicely there. Sharpening, folks, it's simply, in mathematical terms, is the intersection between two planes. The intersection between two planes is a line. That line is the edge that you're going for. At the end of the day, talking about angles all you want or whatever, sharpening a knife is creating two intersecting planes in as much of a straight line as possible. The better you do that, the better edge you have in the end. The trick is, of course, keeping the angle right as you do this. That's the tricky part. Theory, it's easy. Doing it in practice is quite harder. Yet it never ceases to amaze me how much people out there just don't know how to sharpen a knife. Even in the knife community, guys that consider themselves knife aficionados or even collectors, but they just don't know how to do this. The angle, a nice rule of thumb to go by that I actually read in the Even website that does make quite a bit of sense. Leave as much space as the spine of the blade. That's a nice rule of thumb to go by in general. It's not a perfect guideline or anything, but the same amount of space between the stone as thick as the spine is. That's not a bad way to go about it. That's actually what I'm attempting to do here with more or less success. You have to know how to sharpen a knife. You cannot be a knife guy and not know how to. It's a little bit trickier doing it with the camera between my hands. Usually I add a little bit of water, a drop of water, and end up with a more of a slurry in this stone that leaves a nicer, finer edge. But I'm doing it rough and quick here just to show that it can be done. Just inspect it a little bit more. That's the wire edge falling off. If you get to see that there. But yeah, it is. You have to be careful not to cut yourself. Just practice and practice and practice. And after a few years, you become good at it. But you know what? When you get proper instruction on how to do these things properly, I follow so much bad advice through the years. When you get good instruction on how to do things correctly, it is much quicker and easier to reach that point where you do it right, where you end up with the results you want quicker. So again, circular motions like this. At least for this part, that it's kind of getting rid of all that rough damage. The only way I can describe it, the rough damage done by the belt grinder or the grinding wheel or whatever it is they use to burn this edge off as they did. Starts looking better. Still I have quite a bit of damage there closer to the end. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get rid of that completely without eating much of the knife. It's not the intention, just want to leave it sharp. Let's give it a try. Not even going to be wasting the dust. I'm going to be seeing how I'm going to be using that in a second. Even these small particles, I'm going to be using it in some way. And you'll see how. Inspecting it a little bit again. Well, checking for a wire edge. Not on this side, but on this other side, seems so. Yeah, you see again, dragging the nail, it catches there. So we have to do this a little bit more on this other side. Practice, practice, practice. The only way of learning how to sharpen a knife properly. And you know what? Don't waste time and money with gimmicks or gadgets that are supposed to do this. you know, for but there's always seems to be people selling stuff, kind of tricks or ways around sharpening. Actually learn how to sharpen it, and you won't need any gimmicks or any gadgets that are supposedly getting the angle right for you. So little of that actually works compared to learning to do, instead of trying to find a shortcut for doing something, learn how to do that thing properly, and then when you know it, you won't need any weird shortcuts. Well, that's actually much better. Still a little bit of a wire edge there left. This side. Still under 10 minutes. I'm trying to do this by hand in under 15 minutes. Let's see if I get there. If I get to oh, still closer there. That's where most of the damage was done. A bit more force there. Trying to fix that. This looks all shaky, but the angle is mostly right. After so much practice doing this so many times, even though it looks bad and messy, it's not as awful. The other side. There you go. And finally, when I'm closer to the final sharpening, I do it just on one direction, you know, just against the direction of the knife. That's a nice way of dragging away the wire edge. Let's see now. Oh, much better. Definitely much better. Now that we're closer to the final sharpening thing, what I'm going to be using this for, piece of paper, is for polishing. For polishing the side of the blade. Using that, it's like a polishing paste of its own. This is just a piece of toilet paper made into a tight little ball with a drop of water and all those dust particles that you just saw. This can actually be used nicely for polishing. This is of course going to be taking much more than a few minutes, but if you have a little bit of patience, in a few minutes you get rid of most of the scratches and end up with a nice mirror polish, unless there's any big scratches that require a little bit more time. But this is a nice way of doing a quick polish, an okay polish actually. Nice, much closer to what I want. Finally, touching up the edge with our beloved nail file. This will need to be a little bit closer to the edge of the table. I'm trying to do this in under cut in this direction so as to not cut into the soft foam pad. Guys, you guys asked me several times, where can you find these? These are in any drugstore that sells like nail stuff for women, like nail polish or that sort of thing. You will find this easily in any of those places. It's the soft foam pad, or buffering pad, it's sometimes called. You use it for the nails, for leaving a polish finish on the nails. This is the exact same thing. You can even use this side as a great way of polishing that edge. Just get a little bit of paper and see. Oh, that's actually very nice. You see that? Still needs a little bit more work, but much better. You see how it cuts nicely? Just pushing. There it is. So guys, how to sharpen a knife quickly. I know this is done much quicker than someone that doesn't have as much practice, but the technique is what you just saw. Just using ordinary common materials, a small stone, any small stone with a nice fine grit, and this actually used for a little bit more of a finishing touch, so as to get more of more of a finer. It's like buffering the edge a little bit more. What you would have used in the old days, this was done with a well, not in the old days, these days as well, with a strop. The little strops that the barber goes like on both sides, always against, never towards, so as to not cut into the leather belts. But it's just that same leather belt with polishing compound on it is very much doing the same thing that today you can do with a buffering nail pad like this. This is a little bit more rougher. This is what I usually use when I don't need to remove as much material as I just did. When I had to do this because the knife was, the edge was ruined with a belt grinder or a wheel, and needed much more work. But if not, this is what I usually use to touch up my knives, and that's it. If using it in a short session, just touching it with this finer. The finer side, it's almost like, feels like rubbery. This is usually enough to end up again with very nice, right? Okay, folks, that's how to sharpen your pocket knife in definitely under 20 minutes using ordinary materials that you probably have around already. Take care, folks. Have a great day. See you on our next video.